Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the It's Only Kids Football podcast. In today's episode, we're talking about something every team struggles with at some point: defending. Whether you're a team that's conceding too many goals on the counter-attack, or your defence is all over the place positionally, or you're just lacking organisation, this episode is going to help. Our guest today is Max Smith, a football director and coach at Moreton City Excelsior FC in Australia's Queensland NPL. Max serves as the club's technical and football director and has also worked with the NPL men's first team, helping them win league titles and succeed in the Australia Cup and build the #1 ranked academy in Queensland in 2025. He's joining us today to help solve some of our defensive problems and answer a few of your questions. So if your team needs to shore up its defence, you're definitely going to want to listen carefully to this one. And as always, helping me ask the questions is my assistant manager and co-host Mike Clark. Max Smith, welcome to the pod. How you doing, mate?
Ben, that is an unbelievable introduction. I appreciate that. No, I'm doing really well. So it's nice and early over here in Australia, but I'm really glad to jump on with you too and talk some football and see if there's any way that I can help from an Australian, I'll say Australian perspective this time round.
Problem, mate. But what has not been a nice warm feeling for me and Mike is watching our team defend recently. We thought we'd cracked it. We were on a winning run. Everything was rosy, and then we had three games without a win, and some of the defending was kind of and the finishing. Don't want to put all the blame on the defenders. But yeah, we just kind of. There's just a few like little details about the way we defend. Well, not really. That makes it sound like we've got some tactical plan. We definitely don't. It's more like little defensive details that we're trying to teach the children about being ready to defend when you've got the ball, not just being sort of in shape and ready to defend when you're being attacked. The opposition is attacking you, but can you defend when you've got the ball? So, at a grassroots level, how do you explain the concepts of being ready to defend when you have the ball? How would you get that across to the players so they actually find it interesting rather than the kind of boring chore that they see defending as?
Yeah, look, it is, to be honest, you probably hit the nail on the head already. It's one of the hardest concepts to get across to the players, right? Because you look at when you're on the ball, and it's all 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds are all very selfish, right? Being on the ball is fantastic. They want to be on the ball all the time. When you're off the ball, it's hard because you have to be unselfish a lot of the time because a lot of the defending that you do is for other people or to try and help your team. So it's certainly not easy. The one way we try to attack it in our environment, and I think even whether it's an academy level or a grassroots, is trying to make it as fun as possible. So you want the players to love to defend, and somehow you've got to try and bring that concept to life. How can we really get the players to love defending? So we try and set tasks in the game or try and give them different tools or different tasks in the match to make it as fun as possible. So whether you're talking about centre backs, defending is when the ball goes into this certain area, can you now go and get as close as possible to one of their players or different tasks like that to try and help them get themselves into a position to defend. That's probably the first part. You can't start defending as a group or as a team unless your players are in an area ready to defend. That's probably the first part is trying to either break the pitch up into certain areas or give them some really explicit individual tasks before the game just to give them a bit of a guidepost when they haven't got the ball. Because defending is the one thing that you can kind of predict, right? When the ball's in that area, you need to be here. When the ball's in this area, you need to be here. When you're attacking and when you're on the ball, it's so variable. It changes all the time, right? So you can actually prescribe stuff to them and that picture doesn't change a lot to get them in position. Once they're there, then that's when your problems start to come into it, right? Once they actually sit up and organize, right, how do you actually defend? As an individual, as a pair, as a group, that's when it comes down to the coaches and how you actually teach them how to defend individually. So yeah, for me, the starting point is set them tasks, makes it as fun as you possibly can to defend. You've got to love to defend. That's our mantra is, you've got to love it. It's simple as that. Otherwise, it's going to be a real battle to try and get them to defend as a group.
So Ben and I's sons often play in defence, and they like playing in defence because the game's in front of them, right? And it's taken a long time to almost convince them that it is a great position to be in, but they love it now. They don't, Alf, as in Ben's son, will venture into centre mid quite often in games, but my son is pretty much at the back the whole time, and he likes it. And when we put him in other positions, he'll often say, "I want to go back." But it's trying to he can plot ball right with the game in front of him, but he's probably not going to be a defender when he's older. So he's trying to teach him the principles now of defending, because he just wants to go out there and just play. He wants to get on the ball and drive forward, but the actual defensive side of his game and a lot of our defenders is really where they can come unstuck. And I think what you're saying there is make it fun. Absolutely, tick. We could definitely do that. And then it's just teaching them the positions. And we've heard a lot about fireworks and magnets. So spreading out when we're pushing up the field, and magnets making it more central and more tight as we're defending. And I think that's starting to somewhat click with them. It's going to take some time, and they're going to get used to that. But just delving into what you were saying there around those different positions on the pitch, is that something you would do over and over again in training? Are they specific defensive drills that you do in training? Or is there drills that you can do for the whole team? So it's attack and defense, but the defensive unit or pairing, whatever you're going to do, they know if the ball is in this position, you need to be positioned in this particular way.
Yeah, I think you probably need to break it into two parts, right? Because you can't defend as a team first unless you can defend as an individual, right? So you need about them as an individual first, as a 1v1 defender, or a first and second defender principle, as we call them, right? So how to defend when you're the first defender, how to support when you're the second defender. That's a lot of the first things we've got to teach, because that's the habit building side of it, right? So getting them to recognize when I'm the first defender, I need to go and close them down straight away because I'm the closest player to the ball. All those little habits, we've got to start with that first, right? So that's probably the main thing for me, is develop them as an individual defender first. Then when you take it into a group, or defending as a group, then you're spot on in terms of you need to make games or training exercises, practices that, get them defending together. And the one thing I think, especially with younger players, they get in their head is, if you're playing, you said it with your sons, right? If you're playing as a centre back, you're a defender. If you're playing as a midfielder, I do a little bit of defending, not much. If I'm an attacker, I don't defend at all. That's the mindset you've kind of got to change, right? It's going, when we haven't got the ball, we're all defenders, all right? So we've all got a job to do when we're defending. So we try and do lots of little games. A simple, say we've got lucky enough to have 10 players at training, a little simple 5v5 game where you just have, split it into thirds or whatever it might look like. And when the other team's got the ball, if we can win it in this front third and we score, we get 3 goals. All of a sudden, the player's mindset changes, going, right, when we don't have it, we're going to go and try and win that ball back as soon as possible. If we win it in the middle third, all right, we get 2 goals if we can regain the ball and score. If we have to defend all the way back to our last third, right beside the goal, and then we manage to go out the other end and score, you only get 1 point. So already the player's mindset changes to go, all right, as soon as we haven't got it, we're going to score more points if we win the ball in this area. All right, so their mindset all of a sudden changes to go, all right, this is actually, we can get a reward here. This is going to be a little bit more fun now. Bang, off they go. They start doing all those little principles that we want from them, going to press the ball really high, trying to win it as soon as possible. And then it sort of gets that mindset. They get on the front foot. They're looking at all the other players around them going, all right, he can't get it. I'm just going to stop him from getting it. And they start to change that mindset. So like I sort of said at the start, you try and turn a defending game into being really fun and actually, and fun for the players is being on the ball, right? So making a game or a practice set up around how defending is obviously the main concept we're trying to achieve, winning the ball back, but then, as a goal at the end of it, or there's something else that gives them a bit of a reward. So it doesn't have to be prescribed patterns or movements. When the right back flies out here, the centre back, you've got to tuck in and be off his shoulder, because kids at that age, that picture changes so often. It's more for me, especially about building the behaviour and those habits as quickly as possible at the young age. And when they start to get a little bit older, 13, 14, that age, then their mind starts to develop a bit more. They probably spend a lot more time out of possession at that age, because the game is not as transitional. So you can start to show them different concepts and movements because they spend longer periods out of possession. But when they're younger and it's all transitional, like as you would experience a lot on the weekend, right? It's about behavior creation and trying to get them to get in that mindset of winning the ball back as quickly as possible. And if it goes past, but we can't win it straight away, What do we then do? Well, we all run as fast as we can backwards and get behind the ball nice and compact. Like you spoke about the fireworks and magnets, theory, get all together as close as we can, and then make it as difficult as possible for them to get through us. So that is as simple as I believe you can make it at that age.
I absolutely love that game. I think we've got to do that one, haven't we, Ben? If you win the ball back in that first third, you score, that's 3 points. And I'm guessing there's no goalkeepers. It's not really about the scoring necessarily. It's about winning the ball back in transitions and then trying to get the ball into the net. I think that game is fantastic. Is that on one of your football DNA drills?
I'm not sure if it is, but I'll be talking to the guys. I think we need to get it added. But like I said, it's just a habit building game, right? You can start to coach the individual concepts around that. If you've got them in the mindset of going to win the ball back as quickly as possible, then you can start actually teaching them how do I win the ball back now? What is my mate behind me doing? As we go to press the ball, it's those little things that you need to get the behavior of them wanting to go and win it, wanting to have the ball back as quickly as possible first, and then start to coach the principles behind that. I'll talk to the guys. We'll get it. I think I need to get that one added.
Get that one added. I love that one. We're definitely going to do that. And I think the other thing that really resonated with me, and it really triggered something actually, was it's what we're going to delve into a little bit more detail is when we don't have the ball and when we do have the ball and we're attacking, there's still an art form around what position you should be in, as Ben asked in his initial question, right? And what has really been bugging me, especially about my son, is that he'll start ball watching. He's watching our team attack. Then the ball gets turned over and he's in no man's land, and their attackers running free, right? And I'm constantly showing him clips. Every time we're watching the Arsenal, I'm saying, look at Gabriel, look at Saliba. They're together. They're tight. They're all this. And then really what's just really hit home with what you just said, which I didn't really give him much credit for, is it's so transitional at 7-a-side through, under 9s football. The ball gets turned over constantly. And for me to expect him to be in the right position all the time when the ball gets turned over so frequently and the pitches are much smaller and they can get the ball up there a lot quicker, it's really difficult for them, right? It's not like it's 11-a-side where you do have a little bit more time to think about what position you should be in and where the attacker is. It could be split second, bang, they're through.
Yeah. Well, you're spot on. And look, at this age, right, we want them to be on the ball as much as possible, right? So because we need to build that comfort in possession, right? So not a lot of focus is on defending at this age. So, it's a tough one. There needs to be more focus on it because, like you said, it affects the game a lot. I think what you just said, Mike, was a really good point about, Gabriel and Saliba, right? What a great way to help the players using those two players in a match. Can you give some individual tasks, to your son and go, remember Gabriel, I want you to be Gabriel today. When you're on the ball, look to try and break past the line or be really expressive and creative with your passing. But when you're off the ball, what does Gabriel do really well? Well, he gets tight to his defender. He never lets anyone run in behind him. He's always on the half turn. You can give the players, trying to get them to emulate, their heroes, their professional players as well, and try and go, all right, this is you today. You're Gabriel. Remember what does he do really well? This, and this. Go out and do that, and that might trigger a fun environment for him and go, right, I'm going to be Gabriel today. I'm going to do this, and this, and that might trigger something in his mind to go, all right, when I haven't got the ball, I need to do this. So they're little ways that we can try and make it fun for them as well. To defend.
Quick break. Before we dive back into the episode, we want to take a moment to help you level up your coaching game with the help of Football DNA, the ultimate coaching platform that's been a game changer for us. What do we love about it? It's super easy to use, saves us loads of time, and best of all, it doesn't just show you how to set up a practice, it teaches you how to coach it properly. And that's the key. The sessions are put together by top level coaches. We're talking first team staff at clubs like Celtic, Crystal Palace and West Ham. Proper pedigree. You get videos, diagrams, full explanations, downloadable PDFs, and if you need it, a full 36-week training plan tailored to the age group you are coaching. Our lads have loved the sessions. It's made our lives easier, improved our coaching, and taught us loads. Now we genuinely look forward to training and developing our players. Check it out at footballdna.co.uk. That's footballdna.co.uk, or you can download the app. Just search Football DNA. Trust us now and you'll thank us later. The little details that you talk about there, Mac, is something that we've spoke about them, but obviously it's quite hard to really drill down in the short space of time that we have to train with them every week. But we talk about being on the half turn as defenders, because when that long ball goes in behind, if you've got to turn your body, you're already in trouble. If you're facing the game square and the ball goes beyond you, left to the left or right of you, and you have to turn the opposite way, then it's already over. And we conceded a few goals like that recently. And that's obviously a massively, that's real sort of detail for a child to remember when they've got all the other stuff going on around them. But is there any kind of information or details or anything that you've used to sort of stop kids from ball watching or read cues or understand, look, when you see this, you need to recognize that this might happen. Now, I appreciate that a lot of that just comes from experience, okay? That just comes from loads and loads of reps, and you start to, I understand, like read the body and stuff like that. But that's what I want the kind of kids to understand, is that what happens is you start watching the ball, you move towards the ball, now you're ball watching and you're getting dragged out of position. And then while that's happening, it's great if we've got it, fantastic. We're now getting around the ball, we can keep possession, we've got more options. But as soon as we lose it, because you've been pulled that little bit too far forward, because your body's not in the right position, as soon as that long ball plays, now we're in big trouble. And that happens to us quite a lot. I just wondered if you'd coached anything around that, or those sort of little details to help a kid recognize that, yes, we've got the ball, but also we need to be aware of what's going on over here.
Yeah. Look, we sort of said it at the start, right? It's one of the hardest things to develop with young players, because it requires them to be aware of the ball, their surroundings, opponents. It's so difficult because they're so young and they're so focused on what's going on with the ball, because everything for them is about scoring goals, making sure we win or whatever it looks like. They're so focused on that. So we call it the click moment, all right? We try and speak to the players around, like, there is going to be an opportunity at some point where we're going to lose the ball. And that's that click moment to sort of change our mindset. The way we try and, prepare them for that is, right, prepare for that click moment. And as defenders or midfielders or whatever that is, you hear the word scanning. I'm sure you hear, scan, be aware, scan. I hate hearing that word, because it just means the players are just like twisting their head constantly. It's not really giving them any information. But what we try and do is, all right, prepare. What does preparation look like for you? And it's look where the ball is, look where your closest defender is. Simple as that. And when the ball's moving forward, just go look at the ball, look at something else, and it could be your teammate or an opponent, but get them to try to look away from the ball as much as possible, because as they've been in their experience as a player and their training sessions and all the games they've had, they're the experiences now as well. So that can be a cue for them, is going, all right, look at the ball, look at the closest player, look at the ball, closest player. And they keep doing that. Their experience they've already gained as a 9 or 10-year-old that'll start to ingrain in their head, going, oh, he actually is a threat. He's right behind me. He's one of their players. So I need to keep my eye on him now. So it's just like ball, opponent, my teammate, ball, opponent, as much as you can get them to stop looking at the ball consistently is the only way you can really help to develop that, because they've got to get that awareness of their surroundings first. Then they can start to make decisions. We can't get them to make decisions or, be on the half turn or all those sorts of things until they're aware of their surroundings. So it's just trying to get them to be as aware as possible. And it might be for you coming into a weekend game is go, as soon as the ball crosses halfway, as soon as we manage to get the ball out of our defensive third or over halfway or whatever that looks like, what I want you to do is look at the ball. Great, so you need to still be aware where the ball is, but then look at your closest player, as much as possible. Ball, player. That's the only way you can start to get them to get their head on a bit of a swivel and start to make decisions off the back of that. Otherwise, it's really difficult. Like we said, right? It's defending as a group or a team. It's such an unselfish thing for a 9 or 10-year-old to do. It's hard to get them to understand that concept. But you can do it in training as well, right? Like in your sessions, you can build that into your sessions. Until you look at here and look there, until the ball goes there, you might get a point for that. Oh, so you do that twice now, point. And they'll go, what? Yeah, you got a point just for looking? I said, yeah, you did. Unbelievable. It's 2-1 now. And they go, oh, and then all of a sudden all the players start going, bang, bang. Oh, yeah, they're all looking now. It's 3-2, 4-2, 5-2. And the players are like, what? You haven't scored a goal yet? Yeah, but they're doing what you're asked. So it's just trying to make it as fun as possible and build those habits is the only way to try and get them aware of those surroundings.
Yeah, again, I love that. I think we might get. Remember those old? I think it was Lynx adverts with the clicker. Remember them?
Yeah.
I think we'll get one of them because we might be racking up some points here. But what do you do, Mac, when mainly your son, right, is in the match? He looks at the ball, he looks at the defender, he looks at his teammate, he looks at you, he gives you a middle finger, and he just lets the attacker just go off, even though he's seen him. So what do you do in that situation? Because we've seen this where we'll say, you know, there's the attacker, make sure you're with him or stay tight with him, and they'll look over at the attacker, and then they'll just stand still and that attacker's gone. Is this just a constant learning that they will eventually realise that is a threat, they have to get closer, or is there a way in which we can speed up that process of you need to actually move your body? I know you can see him, but move your body.
Yeah, I mean it's all reflection, right? And I've heard you guys speak about the VO, right, and how you got use of the VO. Fantastic, all right. We've got a lot of them in our academy, and the self-reflection of the players is the only way that you can really get them to start to think about it, you know, after the fact that's happened. You know, in the moment in the game, like I said, for a 9-10-year-old, there is so much going on, and they're going to make those mistakes, and the majority of mistakes are defensively because they're so focused of being in possession. But the tools that you've got at your disposal are some of the best things you can use for them, right? So getting to watch the game back and, you know, set a few individual tasks. Don't forget about the goals you scored. Forget about the great assists or penalty saves or whatever. Set some little individual tasks. Give it to your son and go, look, this is all I want you to watch the game, and I want you to, you know, write down the amount of times you are within 20 meters away from your closest opponent, or you know, tell me how many times you managed to jump in front of the defender to win the ball, and just get them to watch and get them to sort of just focus on those moments. And maybe that's the thing that clicks to them that goes, all right, well, you know, 5 out of 10 times I was 20 meters away when they had the ball. And they go, right, that's something that and that's the only way you can really get them to reflect on it. Them seeing themselves do it over and over again might be the only way that you get that moment for them to click, because in a game, like you said, it's just experience. They're young kids. It's going to take a long time for them to get to that point where they are defending, you know, on the goal side, or tracking runners. They, you know, that is such a hard thing for them to get at it as a young player. But if we can use the tools that we've got and try and give them as much experience to reflect themselves, then that might help them, because, you know, you'll both be right well aware as fathers of sons in your teams, you're giving them a lot of information constantly. You know, maybe 10%'s going in, the other 90%, they ain't listening, you know, because they're hearing dad or coach go, you know, all the time. So it's trying to get them to do it themselves. You got to give them some ownership of it as well, because that might be the thing that turns them sometimes.
I genuinely don't think there's anything more annoying in the world of football than telling your son, you've got a mark, him looking at you, it's a corner, they're about to kick the ball, and then he jogs and you're going, no, you need to do it now. And then he turns around and goes, I'm doing it. And then he doesn't do it. And then they score. And then you say, what are you doing? He went, I'm trying. And you're like, that is not trying. Walking towards the person is not trying. That is the opposite of trying. Actually, all it is really, really annoying. And
We've triggered him, man. We have triggered him.
Yeah.
Because now I was triggered.
It's that same concept, right? Is defending is not fun, you know. A lot of the time, it's not, you know. So it's trying to make it so it is for them, you know. I bet you if you asked them, make a run to the back post where the ball's getting all whipped in and you're going to get hit on the end of it, they might go, all right, and then sprint, you know. So it's just trying to get those little concepts of making it as fun as possible, and showing them the importance of, if you cut the ball out, if you manage to get in a passing lane and stop them from playing forward or make a last-ditch tackle, that is more important than scoring a goal or making that pass. It's trying to make it, you know, as fun and as making those roles as important as everyone else, because we all know the reality is the players who can defend properly are like gold dust. You know, there's just so many of them that aren't around, and that's why, you know, you look at players who are progressing through their age, whether it's into an academy or as a professional player, if they can defend really well, then a lot of those players kick on, because they're a rare breed now. A very rare breed.
Quick one for the coaches and volunteers listening. If you're sorting kits for a grassroots team, you'll know the pain. It's never as simple as it should be. That's exactly why Discount Football Kits exists. They supply quality football kits at prices that actually work for grassroots clubs. No nonsense, no hard sell, just reliable team wear that turns up on time and looks the part on match day. From full team kits to training wear for growing squads, everything's built to make your life easier. If you're tired of overpaying or overthinking kits, head to discountfootballkits.com and get your team sorted today. Go Cardless makes collecting payments simple with automatic direct debit. Membership fees come in on time every month without watching parents dig through their pockets only to find a crisp packet or race into the cash point while you wait in the rain. There's no more, I'll give it to you next week. You can just drop a link into your WhatsApp group and bingo, payments are sorted. It handles the admin too, automatically keeping track of who's paid, what's outstanding, and retrying any payments that didn't go through, helping your club keep a steady cash flow for pitch hire, kits, and equipment. You can even pause or adjust payments when families need flexibility, keeping your club supportive and inclusive. Go Cardless takes care of the money so you can focus on running great sessions and growing your club.
From all of the defenders that you've taught over the years, a younger age group, how many of the ones that have progressed or gone to a decent level have been the big boys, the big girls, the ones that have that power, that strength, that natural physicality? Or how many have you seen that just haven't had that, but they just understood the game, understood the positioning, understood how to defend? Is there a massive difference? And you can understand where I'm getting at here is a lot of the time the defenders are the biggest kids on the pitch. Do you agree with that?
Look, there's definitely a mixture. The players that have progressed to a professional level from us have always been, like you said, one who they've loved, like I said, they've loved defending for starters, and they've always played in those areas. So they've had a lot of experience, been able to grow in those roles, and have understood the roles in its entirety. But I'll be lying if I didn't say that they have to have physical attributes, because we see the game nowadays. Unfortunately, if you're not an athlete, it's very difficult for you to break it into the pro game nowadays, so they have to be, whether it's, a bit of height, whether they can, they're fast and behind, or there has to be some sort of physical attribute with them as well. But, look, the flip side is look at Martinez for United, right? At top level. He's tiny, but he's incredibly smart. He's fast and behind. He can read the game really well. So you've kind of got to have one of those aspects. However, what I would say is if you can tick a few of those boxes, you're going to leave yourself in a really, really good position because, depending on what league you're playing in, if you're tall enough to be able to head the ball away from any danger, it's going to give you a massive leg up. If you're fast and you can match it with a striker or a winger running in behind, that's going to leave you in a lot better position as well. So, yeah, look, generally player profiling, then if you're looking for a player, they have to sort of hit those requirements like you've said. And there's rare cases, like the Martinez one for starters. There are rare cases of players who are very good at the other side, but you can't deny that the physical attributes are really important if you're looking at that professional level.
And if you weren't looking at the professional level, because I totally understand that that's the kind of 0.000 whatever the percentages, if you're just looking at solid player and the players that you've brought through, how often are those smaller kids developing to a level where you say that is a solid defender and it's not someone that you'd expect profile-wise to be a defender?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, for our first team at the club, so we're a semi-professional club. So for our first team is if there's a player from our academy that's ticking all those boxes, they're probably going to a high level. So for us, it's about, all right, are they ticking two of those boxes? And our current two first team centre backs, they're probably just under 6 foot. They haven't quite even hit 6 foot, and that's two of them. So they are very, very good 1v1 defenders, and they've got really good attributes that we've, looked at a younger age and gone, right, if they can continue on that path, they're going to be first team players for us. So you're right. If they tick two or three of those boxes, then they certainly can still progress. And a lot of the time, for us, depending on your style of play, will dictate what centre backs you're gonna have, or depending on what league you're in, will dictate what sort of defenders you're gonna have. So for us, we're a very position-based style team, but we want our centre backs to be able to pass, want them to be able to get and stay in position. So that's more of a priority for us rather than the actual height and defending, because for the majority of games we have possession. So if our centre backs can't pass, then we're in trouble. So that's our priority. So when we look into our academy and we go, right, when we start profiling players, our first tick box is, are they good enough in possession? That's our first thing. If they're not, then they're going to really struggle to kick on in our environment. So I think it's, as clubs and as environments, you've probably got to recognise, what do we want our centre-backs or our defenders to look like, and then how are we going to create that through our academy. Yeah, like I think the biggest one is, if you can tick all 4 boxes, they're probably not at our club anymore, because they're if you've got the height, if you're good in position, if you're quick, you're gone.
What about staying switched on, concentration and focus? So I would say for, our boys, they're under 9, so they're 8 and 9. And I would say defensively, that's probably the biggest issue, is can you stay switched on? Are you concentrating, and are you focused? Do you think that's just an age thing that children develop, or is that something that you're born with? Like, how have you seen and developed and coached that aspect of the game?
There's definitely an element of age that goes with that, depending on where they're at. Like, if you're talking about 8, 9-year-olds, to expect them to concentrate and be switched on for a 60 and 70-minute game is extremely difficult, right? So that definitely an age component has a lot to play with it. What I would say though is as coaches, we can be smarter, and we can give the players tools on how to engage in the game, and try not to just focus on it as a team, and try to be right when, have a team mindset, is try and peel it back to them as an individual. One thing we use in the academy, which has been really, has worked really well, is we have individual match cards for the players. So at every game they go to, they get an individual match card, and on their match card is one of our first team players. And they look at that match card, and it gives them a couple of tasks. One will be in position, one will be out of position, task. And that gives them something to always refer back to. So in the game, they should hopefully always be thinking about those couple of tasks, which hopefully keeps them engaged, keeps them concentrated. And then for the majority of the game, they're not just focused on what's happening in position or out of position, they're focused on their individual card as well. And as coaches, we can refer back to that consistently. And it's another tool to keep them engaged, and keep reminding them. And at the halftime break, wherever you go, what was your 2 tasks? Oh, it's this and this. All right, you're thinking about it. I know he's thinking about it now, which is great. And I can sort of refer to that in the game also. Probably one way, if we just got to be creative, right? We want the players engaged. How can we be creative in keeping them engaged? That's the main part. But it's also very, very hard at that young age, because one, they're learning so much so fast. They've only just really learned how to train properly. Now we're expecting them to play games, and be engaged for the whole time. It's certainly not easy. It's not easy for the coaches as well to try and keep them engaged also.
Do you do much with the sort of goalkeepers around defending, in terms of the role they play in instructing the defenders? And what role does your goalkeeper play in defensive shape, positioning, being vocal? It's very hard to get children to be vocal, we've found. They'll be vocal before the game, screaming, shouting while you're talking, doing annoying stuff. But when the actual game starts, to vocalize what they want each other to do and not take it personally and that kind of stuff. So yeah, what do you do around goalkeepers and defending?
Well, look, to be honest, you've probably touched on something there we haven't even spoke about, in terms of players switching off and not being aware of certain scenarios. The goalkeeper is one of the most important people that can help us with that. They can really help us defend. They can help us organize. They can help keep the players concentrated for longer periods. So the goalkeeper's key, and like you said, it's so difficult to get the players to communicate. One of the hardest things, around defending is it requires communication. It requires players talking to each other. However, the goalkeeper, for a lot of the game, hasn't got a lot of individual tasks to take care of. The outfield players have got a lot of things to think about on the pitch, in position, out of position. The goalkeeper only really starts to get effective when it gets to the final third, right? So we can give that player a lot of tasks. When the ball's in the middle third, when it's in the final third, you can start to organise your players. Your 2 or 3 defenders that are in front of you, for 7v7 or 9v9, is how can you help organise them? How can you start to problem solve situations? And that's a task for him, going, all right, when we haven't got it, when the other team has it, your job is to make sure we've got 2 defenders nice and close together. That's your one task. So you've got to scream at Ben, you've got to scream at Mike, you've got to tell those 2 they need to get narrow. And that's your job. That might help prepare, us to defend as well. Plus it gives a little bit of, ownership and leadership to the goalkeeper, right? He goes, well, I'm still playing a part here. I'm not just standing in the goal waiting for them to get a shot away. I can help us prepare. So if you can get the goalkeeper to speak, again, getting young players to communicate is extremely difficult. But if you can give them, like we spoke about, these individual tasks, set them some goals, give them tasks to do in the game, and that'll help. That'll help the group. That'll help the team. Also quite intimidating. How often do you come against a goalkeeper that's talking constantly? It puts the other team off. The attacking players go, "What's going on here? This guy shouldn't. What's he talking for?" So it's another reason why. Well, I believe that the individual task setting for the players, especially around defending, is so important. Because he can help, and he also, the task about getting off his line and being really connected to his back players stops that ball going in behind, because he's there ready to go and clean everything up. So maybe that actually stops them from trying to pass that ball there. It might keep it in front of our back too. So the goalkeeper, consciously and subconsciously can play a massive role. But it's our job as coaches to set those tasks for him, so he's engaged as well.
If you're involved in running a grassroots football club, the football part is easy. It's the admin that takes over your evenings, weekends, and sometimes your sanity. We're excited to partner with Love Admin, the super simple club management platform designed to take all that admin stress off your plate. Whether you're managing a youth team, a community club, or a full academy, Love Admin helps you run things smoothly without drowning in spreadsheets, WhatsApp groups, and late night payment chases. Love Admin handles memberships and registrations, automatically collects payments on time without you having to chase anyone, keeps all your messages to players, parents, coaches, and volunteers in one place, helps you organise volunteers, and gives you clear reports so you always know what's happening across your club. If your club's been saying there has to be a better way to run this, there is. It's Love Admin. We've got some listener questions for you, but before we go into that, we know obviously that you are one of the coaches that features on the Football DNA app. If our listeners wanted to check out your drills, what sort of topics do you cover? If you can remember, you may have filmed these drills a while ago, but can you remember what sort of topics you cover on the Football DNA app, and what can they expect from the kind of drills that you do?
Yeah, look, a lot of the ones that I've done on the app are highly individual technique based. So around a lot of ball mastery, ball manipulation, developing individual players. A lot of it can be isolated at times, because we sort of forget that that's important as well to keep growing technique. But there's a wide variety. There's a wide variety on there. There's stuff for 7s, 8s, 9s, all the way up to 16, 18-year-olds on the app. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have used the app and have been on there. It's a great platform. There's so much variety on there to be able to get access to. And look, even if you jump on and you see one of my sessions or somebody else's, just take little bits. That's all what it's all about, As coaches, we're the biggest thieves in the world. And essentially, we need it, and it's a good thing as well. We need to go and steal as much as we can. And some of it, you might go in there and go, look, I like that intro or the first part of that session, the main body of it. Well, it's not going to work with my group. Take the first part, adapt it or whatever. So the great thing about that app is you can take little bits, you can save bits, you can. It's broken up into sections. If you're having a problem with defending, you can go and look at some defending exercises. Yeah. But a lot of the stuff I'll do there is based around what my personal, methodology is, and I believe an individual play technique is paramount. So a lot of it's focused around developing the individual. Yeah,
I don't think anyone will be thieving anything from me and Mike, but we'll definitely be nicking some stuff from you, Mac. Now, the questions we get from listeners aren't always necessarily about kind of drills and coaching stuff. We've covered that in our chat. Sometimes they're just kind of parental coaching dilemmas, and they're kind of the questions that we got sent in for you this week. So Colin Dutton, one of our regular listeners, he kind of said this story about the etiquette of coach celebrations. So he wants to know, where do you draw the line in regarding coach etiquette and the respect after he'd sort of told the story of after a heated match where the opposition's assistant coach, they scored a goal and he was running onto the pitch and doing a little jig. And the goal that was scored was the result of a goalkeeping howler. While their parent linesman was dancing with the flag and berating the 17-year-old referee. Now, we should say this is just Colin's recollection of what happened. We don't know if this is exactly what happened. But like we've experienced a little bit of this recently as well. Like I would say that me and Mike we're a lot of things, and you could criticize us in many, many, many ways. Certainly our children would be very critical of us, but I don't think we really celebrate too much. And I don't have too much of an issue with it. It's an emotional reaction. Quite often it's a knee jerk, but I'm not a big fan of like at certain age groups getting a little bit too carried away, because there's kids on the pitch, and especially if you celebrate a goal that's the result of a mistake, it's not really for me. But what about you, Mac? Where do you stand?
Oh, look, I think from that example was unbelievable, by the way. But what I would say is, I think coach, so many people try to take emotion out of the game and try to take passion out of the game, which is such an important part of it, especially when you're coaching young players. Like as a coach, you've got to be engaging for the young players. You've got to show emotion and passion as well. It's about how you do that, obviously. Celebrations for me, I think you say that, give that to the players. That's probably the players deserve to do that. I don't think the coaches need to be running up and down the sideline. That's for sure. Look, for me, I don't celebrate too many under 9s or 10s goals, but I think you need to encourage the players to celebrate. They should be flying around when they score a great goal. That's what you want them to show that passion. And same with the parents. You want the parents to enjoy it and celebrate and clap and cheer when a goal, is scored, because at the end of the day, we can talk as much technically, tactically, about football, but it's supposed to be enjoyable for the players, and a big part of that is enjoying the game and having those moments where, a goal is scored or a goal is saved or a penalty saved or whatever. And there's a celebration from the players and that's so important, because that's what drives the love of the game, I think, at the end of the day. I won't be taking my shirt off and flying down the sideline anytime soon, but I do think the players should be encouraged to do that. Go and celebrate as a group. All go and, because you've trained 3 or 4 times a week, you get 60 minutes on the weekend. Go and enjoy it, Go and have as much fun as you possibly can. I think that's important.
Are you telling me, Mac, if I go on the Football DNA app, there isn't a coaching course from Mac Smith, how to teach coaches how to celebrate on the sideline?
Not currently, but if there's a market for it, then we can look into it.
But no, off, never define, yeah.
Oh, that would be next level. But that for me, the players, especially in our environments, as an academy, whether it's academy or grassroots, and I'm sure it's the same as for grassroots players, is they feel so much pressure, these kids, all the time. Pressure to perform, pressure to do well, pressure from the other team, pressure from coaches. We don't try and put it on them, but they automatically get it and they feel it. So there needs to be a reward for them as well. They've got to enjoy it as much as possible. Otherwise, that's how players leave the game when they don't enjoy it and they feel too much pressure. Got to create moments where they're getting is fun and enjoyment out of it. I think it's so important.
I always think kids are quite funny. They celebrate goals like the 1950s, like in England, like they score a goal and it's a last minute winner and they just run back to the halfway line. And I'm like, why are you not jumping on yourself? But they just don't do that. And I'm kind of with you. I would like to encourage the kids to celebrate more. And I think that it's great for the parents to celebrate because it's their child. I totally get it. But I just think with coaches, the thing is, I understand in the moment you have that emotional reaction, right? And I'm all for that. I'm kind of with you. Like, it's just, sometimes you just need to pump the brakes a little bit, because if a goalkeeper's letting a howler and you're celebrating and you're this sort of, you're this adult, this big adult to them, and this little kid's on the floor after letting one for his legs and you're like going, get in. I'm just like, you need to relax, man. Like, that kid's probably pretty upset. So it happens, but people need to chill out.
There is an ego with coaches, right? There's certainly a coach-driven ego. No matter, no one wants to ever admit it, but there is. But it all comes back down to what drives that ego for you. Is it a match result? Or, is it your team performance, or is it are your players getting better? Are the individuals in your group getting better? What drives your ego is so important. You can see it on a match day. You can see what coaches are driven by a match result and what coaches are driven by making sure that their children, their players, are getting better. So that's it. You can, just by their mannerisms, you can see it straight away. And I'm sure you've had many of those experiences, over the past, that sort of brings that to light.
What you're saying there, Mac, is the crazier the celebration, the higher the ego. Is that right?
I didn't want to say it like that, but yeah, you're probably spot on.
Well, also, like, we don't want to make out like we're, goody two shoes, because we're not. Like, we've definitely celebrated, and we have learned. We've nearly been doing this 3 years. We have definitely learned an appreciation for development over winning. But we want to win. Like, make no mistake, we care about winning. We want to win. That is definitely one of I would say the honest truth is we want to win above anything else. But what we've grown to appreciate and really focus on is the development. And we've got really good at coming away from games that we haven't won and been like, yeah, but how good was that first half? Did you see the way we passed the ball? How good was that? And that is something that has taken time. So I think any parents or coaches listening is like, don't beat yourself up if you're not thinking that way, because your feelings are your feelings and you're going to feel how you feel. And it is ego driven. We've spoke a lot about it ourselves. But I think over time, if you actually really try to train yourself and drill it into yourself, you can get a real appreciation for watching the team develop.
100%.
And this is from an anonymous listener. Their son, a young goalkeeper, had been playing for like a first and a second team, and playing back-to-back games, training all week, doing extra training sessions. And then, so he was the goalkeeper, and then he was suddenly sidelined for a new player in the first team. So like I say, to reiterate, this kid was playing for the first and second team to help them out. But then a new kid came in, and this kid got pushed to the second team while this new goalkeeper was playing in the first team. And the parents felt that this was the result of a family friendship with the head coach. And then when this new kid that had come in was away, they asked this kid to come back and play, and that kid refused. He said he didn't want to come back and play. He was sort of happy playing in the second team. And he didn't want to go ahead and help out the first team. And then the head coach accused him of lacking team spirit. How do you that is a very sort of concise installment of that story, by the way. But what do you kind of feel about like that? Like, I mean, obviously, again, we're only getting one version of events, but I don't feel like you can. I feel like if a kid doesn't want to play for one particular team and he's happy, and if he's dropped down and he's playing that level and he doesn't feel like he feels like he's been hard done by, I don't feel like that's a bad thing. He should play where he's happy, right? He shouldn't have to step up if he doesn't want to. I mean, I don't know, like you work in a club where there's multiple teams and first and second teams. We don't really have that yet, ours. How would you feel about that with a kid refusing to play?
Yeah, I guess it all comes down to the scenario and the circumstance, right? Where, like, from our environment, we probably wouldn't have that scenario because there'd already be a player in there. If they're doing well on that team, that's where they stay. You know, if a new player comes in, it's their job to try and push that player out, not the other way around. It doesn't get automatic entry into that group. What I would say is, like, you think you hit the nail on the head. If the player is happy and he's happy in his environment, you know, and that's where he wants to play, then who are we to tell him otherwise? All right, so that's part of it, especially if it's a grassroots level and he's there to enjoy himself and he wants to do, and he's there to develop. Then, you know, sometimes removing him from that scenario can be, you know, detrimental. The other side of it as well, and look, I wouldn't say it's controversial, but I think it's something that we sort of don't touch on as much, as we still need to build resilience with the young players sometimes as well. You know, like, we don't want everything to go their way all the time. You know, having a knockback or being pushed out of a team is such a good learning moment for them, or a teaching moment, as not only as a footballer, you know, as a young footballer, but also as a person, right? As you're going to have knockbacks, you're going to get dropped from a team at some point. It's going to be, what's your reaction to that? You know, are you going to work harder? Are you going to try and push yourself even harder to try and prove that shouldn't have happened and to get back into that team? And it's hard as parents, I assume. I'm not a parent, but I've dealt with a lot of 8-year-olds over the last 10 years. I know that for a parent, you obviously want to try and make your son or your daughter as comfortable as possible, but you've got to be a little bit harder on them sometimes as well, and go, right, if your goal is for them to push up the level, then they need to show some resilience and really back themselves and keep working as hard as possible, and not just be satisfied with where they've ended up, in my view. But I also feel like if a player is enjoying themselves and they're happy in their environment, it's not our job to try and remove that from them or remove their enjoyment out of the game. If that's where they're happy there. But, like, I think you hit the nail on the head with the circumstances is important to understand, right? Why is that player being dropped out? If it's because of a family friend, then look, that's really tough one to take for that player. If it's performance based, if it's this, if it's whatever, yeah, the context of situation is obviously really important.
Exactly. And when we answer these questions, we're kind of only doing the best we can with the information that we have. And fundamentally, I just think, yeah, like you say, Mac, it's just ultimately the child's happiness, depending on age and what they're doing, is paramount. And you just kind of hope that in the environments that they're in, that they're happy, and coaches aren't putting those things, prioritizing over those, their will to win and their ego, like you mentioned at the top. They're prioritizing that over the kid being happy and playing the football that they're enjoying.
100%. I'll just add to that as well is I think, parents and whatever, like if you're not happy in a situation that you're in, or if your son's not happy or daughter's not happy, you can change that. You can remove that. You're like, I don't like when players jump between clubs and clubs. I think it's really important to have consistency in their football. But if they're not enjoying it and they're not happy, but they still love the game, then you've got every right to remove them from that situation as well. If you're not happy, or for what you're paying for at the end of the day, so they've got that right to do that. Also, I think it's important to recognise.
Yeah, absolutely. We had another question from another anonymous person. We'll call him frustrated head coach, or do you know what? We'll call him Ben Welch, because this is about this guy is struggling with his assistant manager, who refuses to commit to his level 1 qualifications and wriggles out of any actual responsibility, yet constantly critiques the team's progress and claims that his under-8 players aren't doing enough training, despite the head coach currently doing everything himself, literally. How do you deal with an annoying, pretty shit assistant manager? Let's start with Ben, shall we?
You know what? I need your help with this one, Mac.
Remove them from the environment as fast as possible. That's the only solution. Look, to be honest, when if there's, I think you look at player development, right? The coach is the most important part. If the coach is being that, if he's making the head coach that unhappy and he's saying things that, are creating an environment which is not an enjoyable one, that is filtering to the players 100%. I guarantee it. Those players. He's got a son on the team. What do you think he's saying in the car home to his son, on the way back? And what is his son saying to, little Billy at school the next day? Or, those situations, you got to try and hit them on their head as soon as possible, because, it just creates an environment which starts to, create ripples in your team and your playing group, because it's obviously it's not a nice situation, for them. And it does ripple through the whole team. I think if assistant coaches or coaches have got that much to say, then, there's the whistle, there's the bag of balls. Go and put them in a scenario where they can actually help, or it's grabbing them and going, look, you're saying this, you're telling me that you don't want to actually coach on the grass. What actually can you do to help me in the situation? Can you give some individual feedback to the players if you're not confident enough to lead a session? Can you go and, speak to some players, or, if they're not adding value to your environment, then, what is the point in keeping them there? That's the reality, because we're there to service the players. And if we're not servicing the players, then there's no point in having an environment like that, in my opinion.
Hey, Mike, you're fired. Piss off.
Glad we spoke about that now. I got to this point.
Yeah. But I am with you though, Mac, because when I read this, I thought actually, when you paint the picture of probably, again, this is probably lots of assumptions here of what's happened here, is most likely two dads have put their hand up to help coach their team. Typically what happens in Grassroots, maybe one of them has more experience than the other in terms of coaching, and this guy clearly has no experience and is not really willing or doesn't have the time to push himself on and progress himself. And that's difficult because, like you said, they both come with children in the team. They're probably out for, friends outside of this. It will be a very tricky situation, but ultimately, again, full circle, take your egos out of it. You've surely got to realize you're not the right man for this job, and you get a third coach in, you get someone else to come in and help, or you, like you said, Matt, you find something that you're good at that you can help with the kids, whether that is, the one-on-one feedbacks, whether that is just setting it up, just doing something that actually helps the coach and the team and ultimately the kids.
Yeah, spot on. Everyone's got value to give in some capacity, right? And especially at grassroots level, when it's getting coaches who are, one, competent, but two, confident enough to deliver is really difficult. So you don't want to put any more pressure on these guys or girls that are trying to do these roles. As soon as they've got someone else in their ear or whinging or complaining about something, that you end up throwing your hands up and going, well, I can't keep doing this because I'm getting hammered from everyone in all different areas. You need to try and create an environment that's as positive as possible to try and help these players.
When I read this, what I thought of was we had Neil Harris, who was 21 years at Man United in the academy, and he mentioned something about he heard a lot of coaches go quiet in games where it wasn't going well. So what it sounds to me like is dads put their hand up, team's not doing well, they don't have solutions, so they kind of get fed up with it because they feel like if they're not winning, then there's no like if we're doing badly and we're playing badly, then why are we doing this? Like there's no point because we're crap. But and I say this as me and Mike have many times across the time that we've been doing this, we've had to make ourselves come back to the why, because by the way, we're like a pretty good team, so we win most of the time, but there have been times where we haven't won and it has been hard, and we've gone through like times where we've been doing a terrible job as like parent coaches, being too hard on our sons, all that kind of stuff. And if you come back to the why, a lot of the time when you're annoyed as a coach and why you're upset, a lot of the time is because you're not winning, or you're annoyed because some other team is winning, or you're annoyed that what you think these coaches and parents are saying this about you and they're saying that about you, and you're not getting, you're not being treated how you want or seen how you want to be seen, and it's because of the team, because the team's not winning, and blah, 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 blah. All that stuff you said at the top, it's all about you, ego, ego, ego. But if the team's not doing well, but the kids are getting better, or they're having fun, or they're creating friendships, if you come back to that why, then maybe it is going a little bit better than you think. You only think it's going badly because you care about the result, which is perfectly normal and okay and human. But does anyone ever ask the kids? I always think, does anyone ever ask the kids what they think? I think so much of coaches, with so many coaches and parents, they never ask the kids. They judge whether it's going well based on whether we're winning or not, right?
100%. I think you hit the nail on the head, especially in that foundation phase, right? You need to ask the kids, because that is so key. Everyone, parents, coaches, we form opinions so fast without actually consulting the people who are actually we're trying to benefit here. And I think you're very true, and I'm still the same now. Even when I go and coach one of our under nines teams, if we start losing, that little bit in your belly starts to going, well, what's going on here? Like, you can't get away from that, no matter what level you're at. It's always going to be there, because we all play, you all want to win no matter what. But yeah, it's all about the kids, and are they developing? Is it important? And it all comes back down to educating the parents as well, making sure that they understand the journey also. And for us, especially in our involvement, for me, is making sure that as much player education and player development we do, we've got to match that with parent education and parent development also, to get them to understand why we're doing what we're doing, the reasons behind it as well, so they can communicate the same message. And I'm sure you've heard all this before. They're just as important as the coaches, because they're around the players a lot more than what we are. So they've got to be giving the same messages, even if they don't agree with it. The parent might not agree with what we're saying, but they need to buy into it, and they need to try and deliver the same message as us, because otherwise the kid's going to have conflicting information. But you're spot on. The main stakeholder in a football game is the player. That's the most important part.
So Mac, you've put a lot of things in perspective, I think, for myself and Mike, is our expectations are probably a little bit out of sync with their age group, and not like Mike, by the way, when you talked about how transitional it is, that is the first time someone's actually said that to me about kids football and defending, because your expectations are so high, but the game is changing. It's a basketball match, right, in kids football, is it?
100%.
And I think that it might have helped me be a little bit more, and I stress a little bit more forgiving.
One thing, that I think is so important, and I talk to a lot about, especially coaches who are working with 9s, 10s, 11s, I think it's so key, is when we watch our under 9 team or under 10 team play, a lot of what we relate that to is watching Man City play Arsenal on the weekend, or we relate it to what we see or what we perceive a lot of the time. And I always say to, if it's defending or whatever it is, go and watch the under-13s play. Go and see what that looks like. Go and watch under-13, under-14 game. How are they defending? What sort of problems are they incurring? And then you can sort of create a bit of, I guess, a bit of a reality check for yourself going, well, I've got these 10-year-olds. I've got to try and in 3 or 4 years make it look like this. Not like, Arsenal defending from the front. It's got to look like this 14s group and how they're defending. And that sort of gives you a bit of a reality check's probably the word, to be honest, of what you're actually trying to achieve, because unless you can see it, it's really hard to know what you're trying to progress the players to. And I think stepping back from it and going, like you said, how transitional, 7-a-side and 9-a-side football is, it's so hard to get the players to recognise every situation because it changes so quickly.
Even as an adult and you're playing 7-a-side, maybe it's just because I'm crap, but the games are always like 15 all, or there's tons of goals being shipped. That's the whole point, is to score a load of goals. So I don't know why we expect a load of 8-9-year-olds to be able to keep clean sheets every week. It is nuts, but that is the expectation. And then the final point for me is not, and again, this is linked to ego as well, and expectation, is when you win a couple of games, you just feel like you're just going to carry on winning. Or when it clicks for them in a half, you're like, okay, well, they'll just do this forever now and we're going to win every game. And then it doesn't happen, and you just get incredibly frustrated by it. And you just don't understand why they were incredible last week and why they just weren't the same this week. And that's just something, again, it's really helped us in our journey, Ben and I, around talking to each other a lot, probably more than our wives would like, but we speak to each other a lot. And then we do look back around what we did well and what went wrong and the reasons, and speaking with the likes of yourselves around understanding what's happening, with kids and how difficult it is for them and how quickly these games can change. I think it can put things into perspective in the long run as to why it was different this week. And realistically, it's a game of kids football. It's going to change week on week, and their performances are going to change drastically.
100%. And like you hit the nail on the head again there, player development is so non-linear. The players do not develop on an upward trajectory all the time. They go up and down and around the corner and do a backflip, and then it's never a steady trajectory. And that's team development and individual player development. It's so varied, and it can rely on so many different things. What happens in the morning for the young kid? What happens, what happened during the week can affect their performance on the weekend. They're going through a growth spurt. They're going through this. This is going on at school, at home. Things change so dramatically for the players, and I always come back to our job as coaches, and our job is to those 10 players as by the end of the year or 2 years, 3 years time, is try and get them all to the same end point. Try and make sure we do the best by all of them to get them to that same point at the end, and understand that along that journey, Johnny's going to be here and he's going to be there. Then Billy's going to go up here, he's going to go here. It's understanding that is going to happen, and it's not always going to be perfect. Like you said, Mike, it feels like that sometimes. Sometimes we can get to a point where it's going, what? I have turned into Pep Guardiola. Like, how am I doing this? And then all of a sudden, you're Ange Postecoglou again, So it's like, it's trying to work out, just understand that's going to happen. You're going to be up and down consistently.
I'm sure people have enjoyed this conversation as much as we have. If people want to find you on social media or whatever platforms, where can they find more from you and get more from you and learn as a coach?
Well, look, I think definitely jumping on the Football DNA app is the place to go in terms of trying to get sessions, not just from me, but from other coaches. Look, I'm not massive on my socials, but you can find me on Instagram, Max Smith with 3 A's. Look, yeah, like I think the best place to go is on that Football DNA app, and that can really, give all coaches, and look, I don't discourage parents from going on it either if they've got the time to go and understand what football development looks like as a good tool for them as well. But yeah, across those platforms is the best spot.
Fantastic, mate. I really appreciate that. It's been great having you on.
Cheers, Mac.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I've loved it.
So before we go, we want you to grab an exclusive deal from our friends at VO. Now you can choose between 2 offers to capture every match with automatic broadcast style AI tracking. The first offer is on the VO Go. The VO Go turns 3 iPhones into an AI panoramic camera system for match recording, and you can save 50% on the VO Go system with our code IOKF VO Go. That's save 50% on the VO Go with code IOKF VO Go. The second offer is on the VO Camera 3. Now the VO Camera 3 is a 4K HDR camera that automatically records, tracks and live streams matches. You can save £200 on the VO Cam 3 with code IOKF VO Cam 3. So that's save £200 on the VO Cam 3 with code IOKF VO Cam 3. And just before we go, we've got one more offer with our partners at Discount Football Kits. Now, if you need to freshen up your equipment and your gear, or you just want to get ready for the new season before there's the big rush over the summer, or you want to get some training equipment for the summer while you're doing pre-season, we've teamed up with discountfootballkits.com to bring you an exclusive offer. Spend £100 or more on anything from kits to footballs to coaching equipment and use the code IOKFFD, that's IOKFFD at checkout to get free delivery straight to your door. You have until midnight on March 31st to retrieve the offer. So that's IOKFFD at checkout when you spend £100 or more to get free delivery, and you have until midnight on March 31st to retrieve the offer. All of this information is in the show notes and video description on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple. Go and check it out there. Very easy to follow. Get the offers from VO and Discount Football Kits right now. Well, that's it for today's episode. Now listen, if your team's all over the place defensively, and if you're pacing around the kitchen drinking directly from a bottle of wine, replaying the last match in your head, obsessing about formation, shape, and some good old-fashioned marking, just relax, all right? Take a minute, reset, breathe. Go back to this episode, listen, and take Max Smith's advice. Try a few things in training and work through it with the kids. Will it click straight away? Probably not. Will it click eventually? Hopefully. And if it doesn't, well, at least you tried, didn't you? Stick together, support one another, lean on the pod, use the community, nick a few ideas and drills, and figure out as you go. And whatever you do, don't lose sleep over it, because at the end of the day, it's only kids football. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take 2 seconds to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. And if you want to check out our previous episodes, just click here.